everyone, my name is Kirsty the Worsty, and welcome to my channel. You're slipping though. Alright everyone, so today I want to talk about science fiction, and specifically what I want to talk about is getting into science fiction for people who are like non-science-y, people who haven't been into science fiction or read a lot about it in the past. Because if you asked me a year ago what I thought about science fiction, I would have told you that, well, for one, I flunked physical science, and also that Han Solo is a tool. That's all I know. But over the last year, I've decided to broaden my horizons, and I read a lot more science fiction, and I wanted to share some of what I learned with you guys. So before I go into the books that I think would be great for science fiction like newbies, I just wanted to go through some of the ground rules of what I am categorizing as a book that's good for someone who doesn't really know a lot about science fiction. So first up is kind of a obvious one. I just wanted to make sure I didn't pick any science fiction novels that had a lot of overly complicated scientific or technological language, because I feel like that's a reason, that's like the number one reason that people don't want to read science fiction, is they don't want to be confused, they don't want to feel dumb. So I'm gonna pick books that don't make you feel dumb, and that's basically it. So my second rule for this is I'm going to pick books that are mostly grounded in a reality that we all understand. So what I mean by that is I'm picking books that are just giving you like a glimpse into the science fiction world that aren't 100% in there, so you guys have a chance to kind of dip your toes into the world instead of just, you know, hopping right on the Death Star. So it's just, you know, we'll make it there, but let's build up to it, okay? My third rule for this is that I picked all modern, mostly YA books for this because I wanted you guys to get a chance to see like where the trends were moving, what things are relevant now, instead of giving us books that were maybe popular 10 years ago and that's really not where the current's moving. So I just wanted to give us a chance to kind of like understand. So whenever my camera like shifts like that, it's because my cat is jumping up on my stand here and he does it 100 times, so I just can't edit them all out. I'm sorry. So my last rule for picking these books is I wanted to make sure that I was kind of putting them in an order that would be beneficial. I tried to put them in order from like the easiest to understand to the ones that would be the most complicated to understand. I'm doing my best, but this is mostly just my purview on this, so it's very much up to what everybody thinks, but you know, I did my best to put them in an order that made sense. So without further ado, let's get our DeLorean up to 88 miles per hour and get out of here. First kind of subgenre of science fiction I wanted to talk about was a scientific or technological advancement. And for this, I picked Denton Little's Death Date by Lance Rubin. So Denton Little's Death Date is about a universe that is exactly like our own, except for one small detail. Basically, they've perfected the way to tell when someone is going to die. So as soon as you're born, everyone already knows when you're going to die, and you're just basically ticking down to that moment. But it's just how this one small thing can change the world in such like an immense way. But the story is also really tongue-in-cheek and very hilarious in a lot of ways. I would definitely recommend this book for you as like a good intro to sci-fi, because it's such a small amount, but it plays a big pivotal role in the story. So next up is Parallel Universes. So for this, I picked 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray, also known as the Firebird trilogy. 1,000 Pieces of You is what really made me get into sci-fi, to be honest, because the cool thing about this is that it's all about parallel universes. It's about this new creation called the Firebird, which is this little like necklace you can wear that puts you into different universes. But what's really nice about this story is that it doesn't focus on like the science of this or how that's possible. It really just dives into the fun part, which is the shifting of the universes, right? So it's about this girl named Marguerite Crane. Her parents created the Firebird, and what happens is her father is killed and they suspect it is his research assistant Paul Markov. He uses the Firebird to jump into a parallel universe, which then forces Marguerite and their other research assistant, Theo, to follow him so they can bring him back into their world to, you know, bring him to justice. So they just fly through all these crazy cool worlds. There's a futuristic London, there's a Tsar-ruled Russia, all kinds of crazy universes. I won't tell you about all of them because that's a lot of the fun of this book, is just jumping right in with Marguerite. But This is really a fun ride, I would say. It's so full of intrigue, it's action-packed, and there is a large sci-fi component to this, but you're just you're going along for the ride, like, blindly, and you don't really need to know a lot of the scientific background. So my next subgenre of science fiction that I wanted to talk about is aliens and alien abduction, and for this I picked Slaughterhouse-5 by Kurt Vonnegut. Slaughterhouse-5 is just such a crazy kind of weird book that it's almost okay if you don't understand everything that's going on, because even the main character doesn't quite understand what's going on. So you're kind of given permission to have this like blank stare on your face. Basically, Slaughterhouse-5 is about this guy named Billy Pilgrim who is unstuck in time. And that just basically means that he is just jumping back and forward in his life with no real understanding of what's going on. He'll be in the war with all of his fellow comrades, and then all of a sudden he's with his wife in his like elderly years. Not only is Billy Pilgrim unstuck in time, not only is he going back and forward in time, but he was also abducted by aliens. He was abducted by this species of alien, I believe that they're called the Transformagorians. That's probably a very wrong pronunciation, but that's how I say it in my head. Basically, this alien race abducted him and put him in a human zoo where aliens like watch him all day. He had a second life where he was married to this woman over there, and I think they had a child in the zoo too. But it's very odd, but very interesting and very kind of like addicting read. The whole thing is kind of just like a mind bender. And then it's also addressed why Billy Pilgrim was abducted by aliens, and that was just because they call it like fly in amber. Like, why was that fly trapped in amber? There's no rhyme or reason to why this specific fly was caught in amber, but it's just what happened. And that's the whole like premise of Billy Pilgrim's life, is that he's not a chosen one. There's no reason that Billy Pilgrim was picked to be unstuck in time or to be abducted by aliens. That's just his like lot in life, which I thought was really interesting too. Next, I want to talk about clones. So for clones, I picked Replica by Lauren Oliver. So the reason I picked Replica by Lauren Oliver is because Replica does a really nice job of playing off this balance that I mentioned before about like our normal everyday lives and the scientific element to it. So it follows two girls, Lyra and Gemma, who go on very different journeys here. Lyra belongs to a place called Haven Institute, where it's full of all these replicas, which are basically clones, and they're not allowed to read anything, they're not allowed to learn, and there's also a lot of like plague things going on, so their life really isn't optimal right now. And it's just about Lyra and this other patient who escapes from Haven Institute, and how they escape and they're trying to get away. And then Gemma's story, she's just a human, normal girl living in an average kind of world like we see, and it's just about them kind of interacting and meeting each other. I actually haven't finished Replica all the way, but I knew enough about it to know that it was a really great example of like a sci-fi world that meets our world. It doesn't have any overcomplicated language. It does a great job of introducing these like clones or replicas in a meaningful way that I think anyone can understand. Lauren Oliver writes contemporary and she writes sci-fi fantasy, so she does a good job of knowing that her audience may not be in this very like high sci-fi mindset. I think that she's not really there herself because she does, write contemporary. So it's just a really nice like joining of those two worlds. Next, I'm going to talk about virtual reality or a technological advancement, and for that I picked Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I read this late last year and it so rocked my world and really changed how I thought about sci-fi, and how it really made me feel like sci-fi was something that I was gonna love and continue reading, and it's so amazing. I love this book so much. So the creator of this virtual simulation game called Oasis, his name is James Holliday, and he just died, and he doesn't have an heir to his like vast billions of dollars he created through having this online virtual game. He opened this contest to anybody in the Oasis who could unlock the 3 keys and unlock these 3 gates, and it's just this really cool, crazy, wild ride. You do spend a lot of time in the Oasis, which is why I put this later in the video, because I do feel like it is maybe one of the more complicated ones to understand. But it still is very user-friendly, as they say. There is a lot of real-life elements. It's taken place in kind of like a dystopian world, but it's still a world that's it's something that we would understand, because there's still a Chicago and there's still buses and trailers, and it's all the things that we understand. It's just kind of in a dystopian, kind of broken world. But this book is such a crazy, cool, wild ride. The narrator does a really great job painting the oasis too, which is nice. Some people do have complaints about the beginning being a little bit slow. I would say just take your time, because Wade Watts has a really interesting voice. He has a really kind of like snarky, cynical kind of voice to him, and it is interesting to hear his point of view on a lot of things. So I would just stick with it a little bit if you feel like it's going slow. You will need this information later, and like I said, I think he just takes his time painting this world, and I actually was not bored. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm easily bored. Alright, so the last thing I want to talk about is time travel. And to me, this is the thing that's like the most synonymous with sci-fi. Like, time travel is like a sci-fi hallmark. For time travel, I picked The Here and Now by Amber Shard. So this book is a really, really good introduction to time travel, because I know when I'm reading books about time travel, it can be really confusing when you go back and forth, and then there's alternate timelines, and it just gets so intricate. But the nice thing about The Here and Now is that they only jump through time once, and that takes place right at the beginning of the story. So it's about this girl named Brenna, who her futuristic world is in complete peril. They've been ravaged by this plague. There's basically nothing left. So the people who are left in the world, they have a time machine, so they go back in time to basically our era. It's basically about Brenna and her world and trying desperately to fit in our world, with some really cool like flash forwards to what it's like in that futuristic time period. Overall, just really solid, really good, a really nice introduction to time traveling. I do know that this book came under a little bit of fire, saying that it had some plot holes and it had some issues with it. And I don't think it's the greatest book in the world. I definitely don't think, if I was going to say my top 5 sci-fis, I don't think this would make it, but it's just a really good introduction. It's very easy to understand. The language is very clear. You get a really nice picture into the futuristic world without being too confused. I myself do have a couple problems with it. I think I only rated it like 3 stars, but it was still good, and it was still good enough to make the list. So, alright guys, that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching. Obviously, this list is going to grow and develop as I grow and develop into reading more sci-fi. I also hope to do a couple more of these videos in the future, maybe, dystopian or paranormal. I would love to do some more of that for you. So if you like this introduction video, please give it a thumbs up so I know you like it and that I should do more. So, alright guys, I make new videos every Monday. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on any of the social medias. I'll put them down in the description below as well. Alright guys, you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye!